That's another thing that's different on the laptop is all of a sudden you hear the little lady, whoever that little lady is, saying recording in progress. So listen, hi, Jill. I'm so excited to see you. Hi, Joe. So we're letting people in a little bit early because we like saying hi to people. Sarah, hello. Sarah with an H. Let's see. And I'm just going to ask you, since we're still a minute away from an official start, Miss Sherry Sullivan, who are you with? Are you a consultant or a nonprofit leader? Or?
I'm on the board of Cielo, which is a nonprofit organization serving Latinos in the South Sound, Puget Sound area in Washington.
Oh, that's exciting. Joe, what about you?
I'm a grant writer for Community and Schools of Central Texas, which is based in Austin, although I live in San Antonio. So I'm boiling today.
Okay. And Sarah with an H, how about you?
Hi, I'm a nonprofit advisory services consultant for BKD, which is an audit firm. But we provide all sorts of back office support, and I have a personal decolonization of wealth and the granting processes and all of those changes and how they will affect the organizations that I work with positively, we hope. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, well, listen, guys, we're ready to start. We're going to do more introductions later. I am going to, here's another thing on my desktop that's weird. You guys are going to hear me complaining about my desktop versus my laptop. And now I'm on my laptop and I have to do this weird thing to get the slide share going. There we go. Yippee. All right. And of course, Shannon, when I did that, I lost my chat and my participant screen. And I want to make sure you can still see people.
Yep, letting them in.
All right. Okay, just a minute, guys. So, sorry, guys. This is typical of me. I'm horrible at this kind of stuff. There we go. We have 27 people signed up today, so we're going to give people just a minute or so to get in, and that's all, because we do in the beginning we'll do some introductions. So I see we've got 15 people in. That's good. Let's start, right, Shannon?
Yeah, and I'm just going to let people know to please feel free to utilize the chat, open the chat, and put who you are, what your nonprofit is, and Marissa says she likes to know your pronouns. So.
And keep in mind that I can't see the chat on this laptop. So here we go. Welcome to Austin Nonprofit Meetup. I am Nancy Manning. I am founder of Power Your Mission and Austin Nonprofit Meetup. And for those of you who don't know me, which are quite a few of you this time around, I have a 30-second introduction that I give, and here it goes. I practiced law for 25 years in Rapid City, South Dakota, while also serving on 3 nonprofit boards. During that same time, I was the founder of the only mediation and training center in Rapid City. When I moved to Austin, I began managing nonprofits as an executive director and did that for about 8 years, and then started Power Your Mission in 2014 and Austin Nonprofit in 2018. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Austin Nonprofit and what we do every month. So first of all, I think of nonprofits as divided into 5 focus areas: resource development, communications, programs, operations, and your people, which is your board, staff, and volunteers, right? So what we do every month is we focus on a focus area and we present information that's helpful to our nonprofit leaders. And the way we do that is sometimes it's just me, and often I have a co-presenter with me. And if I'm super lucky, I find someone like Marissa who's willing to share her wisdom and experience with our nonprofit leaders. And the 4th format we use is we have a networking event. And so at the end of every Austin Nonprofit Meetup I will tell you what's coming up for the next month, but we like to keep it interesting and in a variety of formats. All right, now a little bit of housekeeping. Now the slides will work. I just want to tell you to somewhat limit your use of the chat, but you will notice in the drop-down menu that there is a place you can talk to Shannon. I'm going to introduce Shannon in a second. Shannon Mantrum is my amazing co-hostess every month. She comes and does this every month with me, and yay, Shannon. And I now want her to introduce herself and tell you what she does for nonprofits, because it's very amazing.
Thank you, Nancy. I am the executive director of Launchpad Job Club, but we have a signature program, Leap to Success, which I have run longer than I've been the executive director. Leap to Success does pro bono short-term professional projects for other nonprofits. And we utilize members of the club. Most of our members tend to be what I call the fine wine vintage. You know, we're all at least 40 and up. And so we tend to be on the market longer. And during that time, if you haven't been working, you know, recruiters say, you know, what you've been doing. And so this gives them something that they can say, oh, well, I was managing a project where we did a website for ABC nonprofit. And so I have a whole list of all of the nonprofits, or almost all the nonprofits that we have done work for. I just threw it in the chat. It's got our contact information at the very bottom, but you can see the kind of projects we've done and for which nonprofits. And it'll give you an idea. It's like, oh yeah, I really want to be able to put in a project request. Now, we are in Austin, but because of the virtues of Zoom, about the only good thing that's come out of this past year and a half, we are able to do projects for any nonprofit, nationwide, worldwide, etc. So if there's something that you have a pressing need or you need some professional help, definitely reach out to us, fill out the project request form. I'll get back with you. And soon thereafter, we'll have a project team ready to go. Thanks, Nancy.
Well, thank you, Shannon. I can't thank you enough. And when I was an executive director, she provided help for me, professional level folks to do tasks that we couldn't afford to hire people for and didn't have that quality that she's got. So I encourage you to look at her website and see what she can do for your nonprofit. So now I would love to introduce, and I am honored to introduce, Marisa DeSalles, our presenter for today on this very important topic. And I hope you read her bio, but you know, she does have over 20 years in nonprofit fundraising and marketing. And I have to tell you that I recently watched her video essay called 12 Years of Fly in the Milk, and want to encourage you to all watch that if you haven't already. But without taking too much more time, I'd like to welcome and introduce Marisa and ask her to tell us a little bit about herself.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I'm so happy to see you and to be here with all of you today. I was just noticing in the chat, I just wanted to say hi. I noticed, I walked into this kind of expecting to be speaking to Austin folks kind of exclusively, and I'm so excited to see in the chat folks from other places, including where I went to school in Olympia, Washington. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to the Pacific Northwest folks. I'm a happy greener here and living proof that liberal arts majors from liberal arts schools do actually get jobs and provide for them. So my little backstory is kooky and weird. I'm a Californian all the way. I was born in Southern California, and my family relocated up here to Sacramento when I was, in middle school. And my mom worked for the state of California for 33 years, and always instilled in me the just absolute necessity of being of service of some sort, right, to one's community. So that's kind of my framework. Fast forward to now, my mom is now under my care. She has advanced dementia, and she lives with me and my family, and I care for her along with a lot of other living beings in my house, including feathers and furs and fins. I have them all. And I spend much of my time caring for things and growing food and flowers and habitat for wildlife in my little front yard sensory garden. So if that tells you that I'm just all over the place and into a lot of odd things, I hope that that's a good introduction. So last year, I had been working at a nonprofit here in Sacramento, or south of Sacramento, that did therapeutic horseback riding for people with special needs, and super, super fun place to be surrounded by horses and office cats all day. And during the pandemic, they made some decisions. They chose not to allow staff to work remotely, which was very dismaying to me because I had literally built the systems that would enable that to be completely easy and seamless. And they just felt that essentially there was a trust issue is the way that I see it, because their excuse was, oh, you can't work remotely because, you know, it's a slippery slope. To where? Right? So anyway, during that time, not being a person who can sit around and do nothing for very long, I decided to start a consultancy to formalize some of the work that I was already doing on the side for some friends here locally in the nonprofit world. And hence Good Tilth Consulting was born. And the name refers to my philosophy of fundraising and just of nonprofits in general, which is that in order to improve the health of any one element in the garden that is our community, you have to first improve the health of the soil, right? So you have to address the underlying systems and make them better to make everything better. So that's what I'm all about. I like dirt. Okay, and tilth is a word that actually means soil health. So good tilth is a greeting among farmers and a wish. Good tilth to you. So that's me, and I'm not here today to talk about me really very much at all. What I am here to talk to you about is the community-centric fundraising movement. And my personal connection to the movement started just about a year ago. But its history goes back further than that. But I'll tell you my connection, and then we'll dive into who they are and what they're all about. So after, you know, the kind of disappointment of of being sort of pushed aside really by an organization that just didn't care, the George Floyd murder happened in front of all of our eyes, and I watched the nonprofit sector's response. And I think I was expecting too much, honestly. And so the essay that I wrote, 12 Years of Fly in the Milk, which I later also turned into a video, was in response to that. And it basically was saying, you know, how dare you not care about this? It's impacting us, you know, that sort of thing. And I wrote it, to be perfectly honest, with the intention of never showing it to anyone. And a couple weeks later, an email landed in my inbox from a guy named Vule. Okay, and I'll introduce him in a little bit more detail in my second slide, so I won't go into it here. But I got an email from Vule that said that they were starting this community-centric fundraising thing, and they needed content to go in it. And once I looked and realized what it was all about, I made the craziest decision of my life. And I was like, I wrote this essay. Do you want to publish it? And to my shock and surprise, they said, of course we want to publish it. It's fantastic. Please let us publish it. And from there, a whole journey began. So I am not, and I want to be clear, I'm not like representing myself as, you know, a official representative of the CCF organization, because number one, it's not an organization. Okay, it's not an organization. It doesn't have officers, you know, like that. It's a movement, and it's intentionally designed to not be an organization, but to be a movement. Okay, so I am just a fan, if you will, and happy to represent and run through some of the principles that they've developed without, you know, claiming credit for any of them, because I didn't write this stuff. I'm just sharing it with you along with a little bit of my context in hopes that it helps you approach this material through my little lens. Okay, so that's kind of what what the plan is for today. Before I plow into everything, I just want to leave space for, and I want to say something. So my hope is that this can not be a lecture, but more of a conversation, and that you will engage with me in whatever way is comfortable to you. If you'd like to put a comment in the chat, if you'd like to raise a hand and speak, I will be asking you all questions, and whoever wants to respond, please do. Please use this as a safe space for us to be able to say the hard stuff, because that's what really matters, right? So I just want to set the table and set the stage. This is a safe space. We can say stuff here. I'm going to say some stuff to you. I hope you'll forgive me if I hurt your feelings. It is never my intent, but I'm really what's the word, not honored, but I'm well, come on, English major, like the words falling out of your head. I'm compelled to present to you the truthiest truth I can possibly give you, and sometimes that stuff's uncomfortable. So as long as we're all willing to play on that playing field, I think we'll be just fine, right? All right, let's have a look at some stuff. Push my little magic buttons here. Okay.
Okay, now that's coming
So-
across, that's very small.
Let me see what I can do about that.
And I don't know how, maybe Shannon, can you help? I've got this in gallery view. Is there something I should do different?
I think you could maybe pin her as the spotlight.
I don't know how to do that. Sorry, guys.
Let me see if I can-
No worries.
Wait a second. How about if I do speaker view? Is that better, everybody?
I accidentally muted you, Marissa. I'm sorry. I was trying to get to the spotlight.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh,
There we go.
Here is a
Looks
problem.
good.
Sorry, let me fix that. You guys probably can't read that backwards, huh? Sorry about that. Get back into Zoom. And hopefully all of our technologies will play nicely with each other, right? Because they always do that, don't they, right?
That's good right there.
Is it, I can't see myself where I'm looking at, so I can't tell there.
I can't
Okay.
see you.
I think it's fine. It's when y'all talk, it goes away, but I think it's fine when it's up there.
Oh, because I've got it on speaker view, because now Cecilia's right there. Let's
So,
see.
I'm like, stop talking, everybody, everybody else. Maybe that'll make you go away. Is that how that works?
Yes.
And you guys can read this slide and everything, or do I still need to flip it?
I can read it.
Because oh, you can. Okay, that's so weird. Because
I can read it except when y'all are talking.
Yeah, if you go to if everyone pins it, and how do you do that? You go to the top of your screen to the right where those little, the dots. Click on the dots to next to mute and hit, pin.
I don't have that.
Ah, yes, some people don't have it. You're right. If you go to, it's Shannon's screen.
My screen is the one that I think is,
Or should I do like the share my screen button? Will that help? Or
That
do I
will
have
help.
yes, that would help.
And then click on
that one? I think that's the right one.
Yeah.
Got it?
Oh, it's small.
Is it still too small?
There we go.
Oh, no,
We're
it's
good?
good.
We're good? We're good. Yeah. Woohoo!
Good.
Okay. All right. All right. Fundraising through a community-centric lens. And I'll say centric and centered interchangeably because I just keep stumbling over them in my head. So forgive that. But so this is where it all started with this guy. So this is Vule, and he is out of the Pacific Northwest. And he formerly worked for an organization, or was the ED of an organization called RVC, Rainier Valley Corp. And very connected to other nonprofits and very communicative with other folks in nonprofits, okay? And he started a blog with just musings on sort of like things that are wrong with the nonprofit world, with things that are wrong with fundraising. It's really sardonic and grumpy and, I'm sorry, hilarious look at not real nonprofit life. Like he would write, some of my favorites of his posts are where he writes like responses to grant questions if we were really honest, right? And it's just, it's brutally hilarious and I love it. So my first plug is you got to go on Nonprofit AF and read the blog and subscribe to the blog because the blog is awesome. So I'm forgetting the date. I want to say it was in 2016. He wrote a post about how fundraising is, our tactics that we're using is harming some of us. And you know what's wrong with it. So based on that, he started having conversations with folks in the area. They got together, decided to formalize it, and did an actual research project to see if what they were kind of anecdotally thinking and hearing was true. Surprise, it was true. It was true. So there's an excellent introduction video and I'm gonna let these folks speak for themselves, but I just wanna give you a little quick introduction. These are the faces of the folks that are really the nucleus of this whole movement with Vule there at the center. And you'll see them each speak, but they started with the research. Then they convened this incredible series of global town hall meetings. I mentioned already the content hub that they've developed. And right now their current status is they're working on, I'm actually meeting tomorrow with the folks that are working to transition it from a Seattle-based thing to a truly global movement. So it's a big deal in my little tiny humble opinion, okay? And hopefully my video will show up. I'm gonna let them speak for themselves because I think this is pretty darn compelling. And I'm not sure how full screen or how big I can get it. So you may just have to bear with me on that and forgive.
CCF is part of a larger movement and awakening across the country that we need to transform philanthropy in order to transform change in our communities. Philanthropy and fundraising practices are rooted in a history of exploitation and of racism and of colonization. And in order for us to actually solve the root causes of poverty and other oppressions in our country, we need to completely rethink what philanthropy means and how we participate in it.
So that's Chrissy. You'll hear more about her.
Community-centric fundraising was started because we wanted to find new tools and resources to build power for our community. And when I think about fundraising and philanthropy in general, it's about our access to and relationship with wealth. But historically, many marginalized communities haven't had any access to wealth. In fact, it's been taken away or stolen from us.
The whole system that relies on philanthropy sets up a power dynamic that is unhealthy for communities and individuals working for the betterment of their own neighborhoods and communities.
But that's the thing, the systems are producing exactly what they were designed to produce. The systems are working as they were designed to keep the poor poor, to keep the oppressed oppressed.
I think we have to admit that we have been complicit in perpetuating a lot of the injustice we've been fighting. I mean, we've been telling people that it's okay, that they have a whole bunch of money and that they can just give it back. And then we tell them, hey, you're a great person for giving this money back. But that money has oftentimes been the result of slavery and colonization and other forms of injustice. And by just letting people, our donors, the majority of whom are white, feel really good about themselves, then we're perpetuating the things we're trying to fight.
I think there's been a lot of people who, like, I add myself to this, who have like the best of intentions in this work, but we know that intention and impact are two very separate things, and that we've been doing this work for decades and nothing is changing. Unless we do something dramatically different, we're going to still be here talking about these things, talking about poverty and racism, xenophobia and ableism and all these things that are really holding people and holding communities down. And I think people are ready for a change.
So that's why we need to tear down systems and rebuild new systems that work for everybody.
We want to move into a world beyond nonprofits. We want to move into a world beyond philanthropy. We hope that wealth inequality doesn't exist so that we live in a world where wealthy donors and wealthy philanthropists are making decisions for poor communities and communities of color. So how do we move beyond this entire system, which includes philanthropy, donors, and nonprofits that we know perpetuate a cycle of poverty and oppression in our communities?
May 2017 is what that says, is when the blog post that kind of inspired everything to happen. I'm sure the text on that might be a little small for you. So
yeah, I had been talking to a bunch of fundraisers of color, and also a few white allies who had been very uncomfortable with the way that we have been fundraising. And I wrote about it and added some pictures of baby animals. And I think a few people were really riled up by this, because we have a really deeply ingrained model in our sector of centering white donors, basically. And so when we started talking to other fundraisers, they said, you know what, we need a new model, how to do this that aligns with our values. Because I think there was a whole lot of people who have been very uncomfortable and just did not have alternative model or even permission to say, you know what, this is not working for me and my community.
In August 2018, we held a convening for 90 POC fundraisers in the greater Seattle community to come together and to share their voices about what wasn't working in philanthropy. We were connecting with this POC fundraiser community that a lot of us had never met before. That was 90 POC fundraisers in one room. That was definitely new for me. And being able to connect with them. And so much of that event was about the reaffirming that we really need to make fundraising anti-racist. And there's so many practices internally and externally that we're following that needed to change. So it was really amazing to be with that group. And I think since then, that's allowed us to, or encouraged us to pivot to look at both community and also how to dismantle these donor-centric practices.
In May 2019, CCF decided to send a survey to understand what the perceptions of fundraising were in the local sector, but also nationally and even internationally. We were tired of not being heard, of fundraisers of color being dismissed, and our own experiences being denied and gaslit. So we were able to survey over 2,000 nonprofit professionals, and surprise, surprise, the data affirms what we've been saying, that 2/3 of nonprofit professionals are unhappy with the current fundraising philosophies and practices, and that this data affirms that we need to change and that change needs to happen now.
Based on what we learned from our community, there's been a pent-up demand from fundraisers and from nonprofit executive directors, especially those of color, who were feeling isolated and trying to figure it out on their own. There has been nobody to share with or bounce ideas off of. AFP chapters aren't ready to discuss difficult or seemingly political issues. So we built Communitycentric not only as a community of support, but as a platform to generate knowledge and wisdom that provides a counter narrative to the framework, philosophy, and practices of fundraising. There is little space for those of us who aren't part of the white dominant culture to challenge these conventions. This platform will also provide affirmation that the discomfort that people have had with the way things are done in our sector is completely valid. We really haven't had the language, permission, or community to talk about this before. We hope to act as a lab that this space of sharing will include case studies and stories about what folks are trying and what's working, as well as failures so that we can learn from each other. And we hope to connect folks who are pushing boundaries, creating chapters across the country or even across the world, and developing solutions that fit locally.
The 10 principles of community-centric fundraising.
Principle 1, fundraising must be grounded in race, equity, and social justice.
Principle 2, individual organizational missions are not as important as the collective community.
Principle 3, nonprofits are generous with and mutually supportive of one another.
Principle 4, all who engage in strengthening the community are equally valued, whether volunteer, staff, donor, or board member.
Principle 5, time is valued equally as money.
Principle 6, we treat donors as partners, and this means that we are transparent, assume the best intentions, and occasionally have difficult conversations.
Principle 7, we foster a sense of belonging, not othering.
Principle 8, we promote the understanding that everyone, donors, staff, funders, board members, volunteers, personally benefits from engaging in the work of social justice. It's not just charity and compassion.
Principle 9, we see the work of social justice as holistic and transformative, not transactional.
Principle 10, we recognize that healing and liberation requires a commitment to economic justice.
Okay, so that's, kind of CCF in a nutshell. I think, those guys all spoke really well about what it really is and why, kind of. Before I jump ahead, I just want to give an opportunity in case anybody would like to ask any quick questions at this point or make any responses. And I suppose the best way for us to communicate is just by doing the hand raise thing, except I can't see all of you on the screen at one time, so it's a little hard for me sometimes if you're not on my primary screen. So yeah, everybody knows how to use the little hand raise button, right? Hopefully. Okay. If not, jump up and down, wave or something. Or just unmute yourself and interrupt me. I won't be offended at all. All right, moving on.
Yeah, that might be best. That might be best if people, if they want to ask a question or comment, to unmute themselves, maybe. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. There aren't that many of us. I think we can manage it. So yeah, let's just look at the principles, right? So fundraising must be grounded in race, equity, and social justice. There's a lot in there, right, to kind of unpack. But the first kind of way to think about that is investing in your staff training. If your staff doesn't understand anti-racism, systemic oppression, equity, if your staff doesn't know what equity means, you can't ground your efforts in equity, right? So, pony up for that full day or all week staff training, right? This is not a one and done type of deal, obviously. And even after that training, that one training is not going to be enough. You're going to need to follow it up. You're going to need to make sure it has meaning, make sure there is accountability built into whatever you're doing, right? Because otherwise it's just meaningless gobbledygook, right? Encourage, this is the second part. So once you've got your staff on board, you talk to your donors, your staff talks to your donors. And once they have that backpack of knowledge to carry around with them, they can dig in the backpack and whip out a topic and very gently, bring it up to a donor that presumably they have spent the time to create an actual relationship with, right? Because we're not transactional people, right? We're working on like actual relationship building as fundraisers, hopefully. Then if you have a true and honest relationship with somebody, you can ask them to have a hard conversation, okay? What about investing in fundraisers who come from the communities that you're serving? What does your fundraising and marketing staff look like? Does it look like your community? Does it sound like your community, right? Or not? And if not, why not, right? One of the ideas too that they mention in this first principle is the idea of like trickle down community engagement, where sometimes our friends at the large budget organizations can sort of suck up a lot of the resources, right? And then presumably trickle that down to the grassroots folks that are, you know, on the ground doing the hard stuff. But is that always appropriate? I think sometimes it's not. And I think there are opportunities for large organizations to have greater impact by stepping back sometimes. So there's something to think about on that. So let's talk about this first principle, right? Where does one start? What I'd really like to know is actually, where do you think your org, maybe we can all just stick this in the chat. Where on this spectrum do you feel like your org currently is? Are you haven't reached the trailhead yet? Are you haven't even put your tennis shoes on yet? Or are you like on mile 10 and sweaty and dirty and feeling really good about what you've done and really also realizing the road is way longer than you thought it was? Right? Hit me in the, let's just see in the chat, because I'm really curious just where you feel like your org is on that journey. I'll give you guys a couple minutes and let me get to where I can see the chat better. I don't know, maybe I can't see the chat when I'm screen sharing. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, that's always my problem. Do you have your toolbar down at the
there
bottom?
it is, under more.
Yeah.
Hiding under more, sorry. I'll just pull it, sorry. Taking, Beverly Hamilton says they're talking the talk, but trying to walk the walk. Oh, it's hard, but that's, you know, it's a transition and that's a place. It's a place, right? You got to talk about the trail before you start walking. Right? You got to pick out your shoes, make sure they fit right. And Uganda says that they're at the investing in staff point, which is where you start, really where you start. When I think back to my former org, you know, the idea of even having a staff training on equity would have been laughable, honestly. Like, unless it was something mandated by the state, like sexual harassment, we weren't going to be trained on it. But we did have sexual harassment training every quarter on an all-female staff. Oh, that was so much fun. But so that's a place to start, right? Get to the staff, find a consultant, get somebody in, buy everybody the same book, whatever it takes to start, right? How to be an anti-racist. There's a great easy book to just start with, right? Start just something, right? Anybody else want to have any like comments about that process or that journey? Okay, we'll just move on to principle 2. Individual organizational missions are not as important as the collective community. Boy, doesn't that sound obvious, and isn't it not? I mean, the scarcity mindset, honestly, is appalling. It really, really is. I have been in boardrooms where people, with all seriousness, you know, talk about other organizations in their community as though they were some competitor to be squashed or some obstacle to be moved past. And it's very disheartening to me. But, you know, sometimes I feel like organization leaders may come from the for-profit world where that competitive mindset is really more prevalent. But I feel like it doesn't belong here. It doesn't belong here with us in nonprofit land. So you know, you get an opportunity where you win, but the rest of the community doesn't. Well, are you really winning? Because you are the community, right? We are the community. This means like being thoughtful about the grants that we apply to and the donors we take on and the ones we are willing to walk away from. Okay, I was on in a chat yesterday with an organization that I really, really admire locally here in Sacramento. And they're in the conservation world, which is, to be frank, the whitest of all of the nonprofit, you know, sector worlds. And they recently had done the hard work. They invested in the staff training, and they put their whole staff through a full week of training. They put their board through a full day of training. They wrote a public apology and put it on their social media, apologizing for the ways that their organization in the past had unwittingly contributed to the problem of the lack of folks of color and folks with different sexuality in nature, and the lack of feeling of safety for those folks to be out in nature, right? Incredible. Now, did they get some hate mail? Did they get some pushback? Well, of course they did. Did they lose some donors? Yes, they did. They did. And then that included like a, you know, major donor, and it hurt. Yep, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat that. It did hurt. But you know what? For every negative comment on their social media, oh, how dare you bring politics into nature, all that kind of junk, right? For every one of those, there were 100. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Finally, someone is paying attention to the fact that there aren't enough of us out there. But and it was astounding, absolutely astounding. And so their director of philanthropy was saying, you know, yeah, this is a hard process. Yeah, it wasn't fun to lose that major donor, but now our circle of support is much wider, right? Because people who didn't even know they existed because of the controversy of their apology, you know, and the, you know, magic of social media algorithms, they were able to get a large exposure from that. And I admitted to them, I said, that's how I found out about your organization. I didn't know you existed, and I love nature and I live in your neighborhood, right? So they actually increased their whole support network and broadened their donor pool, okay, by doing the hard stuff and walking away from a big potential pile of money. So, you know, tell that to your board. Also, checking back to see, is your mission still relevant to what the community actually needs? When's the last time you went back and looked at your mission statement? Oh, it's been a minute, right? It may have been 2 minutes, but is it, right? Like, sure, hopefully it was like relevant to your community needs at the time you wrote it. How long ago did you write it? And have you ever come back to looking at it again since then, right? It's worth checking. This is a hard one. Consider shutting down or merging with another org, because a lot of times we're duplicating each other, right? And sometimes that's out of sheer ego. I was in a room once where the presenter asked people to put their hands up. There was probably 150 of us in this room, all nonprofit folks. So put your hand up if you're an organization that works with youth. You know, 3/4 of the room was like, yeah, we work with youth. Okay, and she was like, okay, keep your hand up if you work with youth after school. Everybody's hand was still up, right? Well, she kept going and getting more and more specific. And by the time she got to work with youth after school, teaching them about food and nutrition, and have a business and economic component to your program. There were still 5 hands up. This is not that big a town, but there's duplication everywhere. We're all guilty of it. So this is a thing, like if you're just taking up space in the nonprofit world, and there's another organization down the street, maybe you should merge. Maybe one of you shouldn't exist, right? It's heavy stuff to think about, but it's something to think about. Are we responsive? Do we need to exist, right? Some organizations are meant to end their own existence, right? So I'm working with an organization that is literally their only function is to build a community center, Filipino community center on this patch of land that they've owned since 1985 when I moved here in Sacramento. And that's all they exist for. And they're a combination of other cultural organizations in town, but that particular organization literally has one reason for existing. And after it builds that community center, it will not exist anymore. Because it makes sense, right? If the need is met, walk away. This last one is a little bit more conceptual, but I'll give you a good example of how to actually make it work. So invest in staff and board's position in the sector to build bridges between organizations. I'll give you the slide back. What that means is when your city has a giving day, for example. I love giving days. They're like my favorite thing now. Your organization has a giving day. The foundation in your town puts on some sort of meetings or networking things for the folks that are participating in that. And I do apologize. It looks like my internet connection is being a little bit unstable, so I apologize if my audio is choppy. But anyway, so say you've got a giving day and they're having a meeting. You send your staff and your board to the meeting, and you pay the staff for their time. And you buy the board member lunch for the time that right. And while they're there, you tell them, I want you to sit at separate tables, and your job is to meet and network with 3 other nonprofits and come back and tell me how we could be a partner with them. Right? As opposed to, okay, go get the information for this stupid thing that we're doing. Make sure and get back before that program meeting, because, and by the way, I'm going to need you to do this on your own time because this doesn't really, benefit our organization. Right? Like, no, send them down and ask them to find potential partnerships. When we did our giving day here in Sacramento, it was brand new. And nobody here had ever heard of such a thing before. And it was a kind of odd concept. And they did a pilot year with a small group of folks to get everybody used to it. But then they ramped it up to everybody in town could do it, right? And sorry, did somebody say something that I missed or should pay attention to? I caught something there. Anyway, so my first thought, just because this is who I am, was, let's have a party. but not just let's have a party, but let's have a party and invite all of the nonprofits that are located in our little suburb, because we happen to have a large facility and some of them literally had no facility at all. So let's throw a party and invite everybody, and they can have little tables with little booth tables or whatever. Which was crazy, honestly. If you're coming from a traditional mindset, oh, why would we do that? They might steal our donors. Oh my goodness, we can't have that now. That's not okay, right? No, first of all, we're already sharing donors. It's not that big a town, right? And hosting this collaboration, this partnership, it's just a vendor fair. It costs us nothing, right? We already have the tables in the back. It's immediately established us as a leader of nonprofits in that town, it's now city, okay? Just because of that sheer generosity of allowing other people space, okay? Oh yeah, so Shannon in the chat, so that's what I missed. So she was saying that when somebody comes to her with their great idea of working with kids and after school programs, she asked them if they've Googled nonprofits for kids in their area. And there's, 57,000 of them already. And the problem, the whole problem with that approach is that then we're duplicating the effort of managing and administering and, the reporting on the grant back, and all that stuff is being done by 27 different organizations of people. It is ridiculous. It doesn't make sense, let alone it being a waste of basically our tax dollars that are then funding that grant, right? Okay. Let me just leave some space here for responses to this particular principle. Meaning, what I call this is the get over yourself principle. Orgs are like, oh, our org is the best. Our mission is super important. It's the most important thing in the whole wide world. No, you're not. No, you're not. Get over yourself, right? The community is what's important. You're one piece, right? That's the way, that's what this whole principle is saying. Get over yourself. Yes, you're awesome, but there's a lot of awesome stuff happening and you're just one of them. All right. Anybody, I'll just take a look at your little faces to see if anybody is like waving at me to call on them. You're also, again, just welcome to unmute yourself and jump in and say something if you are so inclined. All right, and if you don't, I'm gonna assume you have nothing to say and keep on talking. Okay. So 3, this is very, very close to the other one. Nonprofits are generous with each other, mutually supportive of one another. So what does that look like? A lot of times with nonprofits, we're coming from that scarcity mindset. We're coming from a place of fear. We're coming from, we got to survive. Oh my gosh, if we're not here, the hungry children won't be fed, the puppies won't be rescued, whatever it is, right? We got to survive. Well, when your decisions are coming from a place of fear, you're generally not making the best possible decisions, right? We're not in the jungle, and it's it's coming from this like place of fear, and survival is not a place where growth happens, right? It's a place where survival happens, but growth is not the same as survival. Collaborating with organizations whose missions are connected or similar, why not, right? Get with them. Let's help each other. Like, why would we even think that we should pit ourselves against each other? It's ludicrous, honestly. Here's something. When's the last time you introduced one of your donors to another nonprofit? Ooh, what? Who would do that? That's insane, right? No, it's not. No, it's not. So if I work for therapeutic horseback riding program, and our program is not rescuing the horses, but rescuing the children, essentially. And I know that there's an organization across town who's literally just rescuing the horses, right? They just rescue horses. That's all they do. Y'all in Texas, y'all know about some horses. Why would I not make a connection if I have a donor that it just loves horses and everything horses, and they're whatever, dressage person, all that stuff, right? Why would I not also introduce them to my friend across town who rescues horses? This donor has enough capacity to give to both of you. It doesn't mean they're going to reduce what they give to you. If anything, it builds you up in their eyes and makes them trust you more, because that's what you would do in a relationship, right? Not a transaction, not I'm trying to sell you this so you can give me that. If we're in relationships with people, we want them to succeed, right? We want them to be happy. We want them to feel fulfilled, right? So it's just a different way of looking at it, right? Sharing grant opportunities, funding opportunities, funder relationships. Hey, buddy, I saw this grant and I thought about applying for it, but it didn't really fit that well with our mission or our needs right now. Let me forward it to you. Let me forward it to you. That didn't cost you anything. Didn't cost you anything. You weren't going to use it. Give it to somebody, right? Give credit to other nonprofits publicly. Hype other nonprofits up. This is one of my favorite things to do, is go on social media and just hype up other organizations. Like, do you know how happy you make their staff when you do stuff like that? You know, just, and what did that cost you? Nothing. What did it gain you? Credibility in the eyes of the whole community, because they know you're not just in it for yourself. Generosity is extremely attractive. Right? Collaborate, support, all of these words in here. Generously share resources, ideas, best practices, all that good stuff. Generosity doesn't cost you. I mean, hopefully we're preaching that same message to folks who are donating, and they already know. Generous folks know generosity is its own reward, right? I'm gonna leave a little space there before I move forward for anybody who has anything, and let me just check to see if there's stuff in the chat, because I don't immediately see that. I know the scarcity mindset, says Beverly. It's really hard to get out of that. Oh, and then here's something good from Sarah Logan. Thank you for this, Sarah. Wanting to control and exist alone instead of collaborating and relinquishing control or merge is white saviorism at work. Oh, true that. True that. That's all I can say. And hopefully you guys are all familiar with this phrase. And if you're not, it's just, you know, this I think pervasive, you know, belief in the nonprofit world that not just, oh, I'm here to help, but, oh, I know better than you. And so I am coming to bestow upon you the wonderful blessings, right, of my whiteness and privilege and power. Thanks, but no, thank you, right? That's not the way we need to approach people that we need to be building relationships with, right? It's just not. All right, so I'm going to go forward into number 4. All who engage in strengthening our community are equally valued. Just let that sit in you for a minute. Whether volunteer, staff, donor, or board member. Okay, this is in 100% direct opposition, I think, to the whole donor-centrism philosophy. Okay, it means we're all worth the same. We all have something to contribute, and it is valuable and valued. Okay. Bullet 1 is our staff play a critical role in building a strong and just community. We must compensate them fairly, invest in their growth, and appreciate them as much as we appreciate donors. Okay, imagine if your staff got the same kind of treatment you give your major donors, right? And maybe they do, I don't know, your staff probably loves you, you're probably awesome. I'm not just saying that you're terrible, but are you though, right? Like, our boards play critical roles in this work. We have to appreciate our board members as much as we appreciate our other donors, because your board members are donors. If they're not donating their treasure, they're certainly donating their time and talent. Our volunteers provide valuable skills and work and help to strengthen our community. We have to appreciate our volunteers like we appreciate our donors. I will die on this hill. Volunteers are so underappreciated. I have seen it. I have been just dismayed and shocked and disheartened more times than I care to admit by organizations' treatment of volunteers. And before I did the role that I did most recently, I started as a volunteer coordinator. So I'm going to tell you right from the, on the ground, volunteer coordinator person, we have got to treat the volunteers better. We just do. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know what to say about that. But then again, what about your clients, your beneficiaries, your program recipients, whatever you would like to call them? What if we looked at them not just as recipients of our services, but as vital contributors to the community that we all live in? What if we appreciated our clients as much as we appreciated our donors? So again, this is nothing against donors. I love donors as much as anybody else. I am a donor, right? We're all donors, right? But the donor has to move from the center to being part of the circle, okay? It can't just be about them. It has to be about all of us. And that's really the most center, the center of the community-centric principles is that everybody's valuable, okay? And on that same note, time is just as valuable as money. More in some cases, right? Sometimes I think part of the problem with volunteer appreciation is not valuing the time and talent and connections to marginalized communities as much as we value people who just write us a fat check, okay? But without that connection to that community, you're not going to have the level of impact from that check that you could have had. So this is where, it gets sticky sometimes. We ask folks for money. They may not have the means, but they have some time. And if they gift you that time, it has to be treated like a gift, I mean, and then, yeah, what about staff time? Because no fundraising team ever has worked an extra unpaid 30, 40 hours on that gala project, right? Right. I saw something that said, what if it was standard practice? You know how we like to write those wonderful handwritten thank you notes to that big sponsor that made the thing happen. What if you wrote a handwritten thank you note to the staff member who had to beg their babysitter to stay till 10 o'clock at night so that they could finish setting up the tables and chairs for the silent auction that next day, right? What if she got a handwritten note and maybe like a Starbucks gift card, right? What if that was standard practice? Okay, so valuing people's time as much as we value their money. Sometimes all people have to give is time, and that's the best thing that they can give you is their time and their expertise. Couple things in the chat. Oh, wow. From Katie Katiti, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. Someone recently told me that by being donor-centric, they were being community-centric because if the donor made big gifts, that would help the community. Oh. Yeah. Oh, and she eye rolled out loud. Whoops. Oh, 30 minutes. Oh my gosh. See, and I was worried I would not have enough to say, and I'm only halfway through. All right, let's go. 6, donors as partners. So this is a big one to me. This is a big one. If we treat donors as partners, this means we are transparent and occasionally have difficult conversations. So like, again, this relationship thing, right? Moving from a donor-centered relationship to a relationship-centered relationship, right? means that we have to be honest about some things that we weren't as honest as we could have been. And sometimes we have to say tough things to each other or say things that we know will cause some reaction in each other. And that's just part of, I don't know if any of you are in like, partnerships or romantic relationships, but yeah, we have to fight occasionally and we have to disagree occasionally, and we have to treat each other as equals and respect each other enough to be honest with each other, right? If you're giving them opportunities for them to further their understanding of something, if you're asking them to sit for a meal with you, now that we're all vaccinated, yay, we all hang out together. In California anyway, we just opened all the way back up yesterday, and my instinct was to like, okay, I'm going home, putting my mask on and hiding in the closet. But creating opportunities for people to understand something that they don't know is very different from going, Billy Bob, big donor, I think you're a big fat racist, even if that's what you actually think and are probably right. But right, Billy Bob, meet me for a hamburger at Shake and Shack, and there's something I wanted to ask you about. Right? It can be done. It really can. When you're coming from a place of a transactional business deal and I just got to raise this money, I just got to raise this money. No, you're not going to be able to have that conversation at all. Like you're not, right? Would you have that conversation with the cashier at Walmart? I mean, you might, but I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, right? So work on that relationship, because when you have that, you can do this hard stuff that makes everything better. Sometimes it means saying no to them. I'm sorry, no. It's that easy. I'm so sorry, I'm just not going to be able to accommodate that, right? Respectfully and firmly push back when donors do or say things that are detrimental to our work or our community. It is okay to say, no. Being honest and transparent with donors about the resources that it takes to comply with their wishes, AKA overhead, right? Being honest about that means they have a deeper understanding of your work. You know what I mean? And then maybe they will not say, I don't want to fund staff salaries. If you want to have impact, you got to fund people. We must never adhere to donors' wishes if it comes at the expense of our clients and community. So that means maybe turning down that new building named after that donor that's a sex offender and you're an organization serving children, right? Like sorry, you're not getting that new building that way, okay? All right, I'm gonna push through into belonging, not othering. Foster a sense of belonging, not othering. When partnering with our community folks, asking them to be involved, we must authentically partner. So, not stick them on a committee that has no power, right? Like actually partner. This is a big one for me, is the second one here. We must be thoughtful of the impact on our community when we ask them to share their stories. Okay, are we perpetuating poverty tourism when we're, you know what I mean? And I have had to check myself many a time, because my organization worked with the cutest children on the planet ever. And they were people with significant medical challenges and they were minors. And they were so cute. I just wanted to put pictures of them in every appeal, you know what I mean? And of course, oh my God, it's an adorable kid on a horse, right? But I had to talk to them and I had to talk to their parents and I had to really, I felt personally compelled to compensate them in a way. Either they got some services that they normally paid a fee for, then they got a scholarship for that service, or we made them breakfast if they came in to, talk to the media at 6 o'clock in the morning on our behalf on those, Good Morning America type shots, right? We made them sausage, right? Being thoughtful about the images we're using. Thoughtful about the images we're using on our website, our brochures, our social media. I was looking at something, I can't remember now what it was. I was researching, but I discovered myself having an emotional reaction to just the stock images that they had on their website. And I was like, ugh, why would they use that? I don't want to work with this company. Right? Like it's kind of funny, but yeah, somebody has not heard the word poverty tourism. Yeah, that's a phrase you want to know, unfortunately. Oh, yeah, in the chat. Sorry, let me, just in case anybody's not watching the chat, Josue had something, and again, I hope I'm pronouncing right. Something in the chat, he's had those conversations, and it worked. The donor acknowledged their behavior, apologized, and became more involved. Like, people actually welcome an opportunity to learn and be better. I think most people mostly want to be better humans. I mean, maybe not everybody, but I think most people want to be better. And this is an opportunity for you to be better, for us to be better humans together, right? We, the power of we, right? So in the whole donor-centric model, the you is the word. Everybody wants to hear you, it's all about you. Which is cool and definitely true from a psychology standpoint. Everybody likes to hear like they're being addressed, but we language includes the donor as part of the community doing this work. We are working too. Not you have made this wonderful program possible, but we, right? We. Promoting the understanding that everyone personally benefits from the work of social justice. It's not just charity and compassion and being nice, right? The work that we are doing as nonprofits benefits our community. We are our community, right? Everybody benefits from this work that we're doing together, the whole community. It's not just, oh, let's go help the poor people. Oh my gosh, those people are unhoused. Oh, the poor. It's, hey, we all live here and we believe that human beings deserve shelters to live in that are not tents on the sidewalk, right? That's a different perspective. I'm gonna go feed the poor, hungry people. We, as this community, know that there's enough food for everybody, so we're gonna work to end food deserts and scarcity, right? It's just a little bit of a different perspective. Because the donor benefits from the donation, right? They put their resources into helping the community. They live in the community. They therefore benefit. It is cyclical. The work of social justice is holistic and transformative, not transactional. Okay. It means being transparent with financial reporting, which we obviously are obligated to do, but whenever possible, we'll report holistically. And so there's some good examples on the CCF website of like what that actually means. But so, you know, as opposed to saying, you know, I'll let you look at it on the website because it's a little bit involved, but basically kind of looking at, you know, rather than we spent $37.52 this year on paper clips, it's, you know, we worked with 327 families, right? So that kind of thing, like transparent, but not, but with a holistic view. The part of the problem is that funders need to understand and support our core mission support, which is what, you know, we should be calling the whole indirect expenses, the overhead and all of that kind of garbage. And I'm looking at some of you, it's probably all of us, stop underreporting your core support expenses. I feel like everybody does this. Why are we doing this? We need to stop it. We need to stop it. It's hurting all of us because we've put the floor down so low. The funders think anything above, you know, 0.05% of administrative expense. Like, could you run a business like that? I dare you to try. You ask PG&E to give you your lights on for free, and like, stop it. Okay, right, race to the bottom, says Beverly. Like, that doesn't help any of us, and you're losing all your staff because you can't afford to pay them because you couldn't make your grantor understand that you can't run a program without people. Okay, artificially trying to keep your fundraising and M&G expenses, says Sarah, under a certain percentage only serves to hurt the industry. No margin, no mission, and the margin comes from overhead / unrestricted support. You can't innovate or sustain without it. Thank you so much for that. Last one. We recognize that healing and liberation requires a commitment to economic justice. Okay. we can't, oh, what is it? None of us are free until all of us are free, right? So this is when we also must recognize that this involves fundraisers and donors grappling with and addressing the root causes of inequity, including some of the destructive effects of capitalism and how we may be complicit in furthering them through the practices that we are just, blindly continuing to do. All right, some homework if you're interested in learning more, some places to find more good stuff. Obviously, the first place I'm going to direct you, of course, is to the Community-Centric Fundraising website itself. Everything that I've presented here is on that website in one form or another. Also, the Content Hub has some really incredible, so let's see, I had something else on there. Oh, so it goes into the principles, but the Content Hub has some incredible examples from folks of color who are doing fundraising. And some of them are about ways to put some of these principles into action. And some of them are just personal stories and that sort of thing. But there's just tons here. If you do want to watch my little video, that's where you'll find it, is on that Content Hub on the CCF website. And then some other movements that are happening that are not necessarily affiliated exactly, but are sort of allied and parallel, shall we say. That's a good word, parallel. So here's Nonprofit AF. You definitely want to check that one out. Another one that I recently became aware of is called Fund the People. Okay, and this one is about investing in talent. And they have, sorry, my internet's pulling up a little slow there, my apologies, but talent justice. So, and also, here's an example of how to pick a really amazing stock photo. I don't know where they got that one. That's fantastic, right? But talent justice, research and resources to help you invest in equity. So that one's super useful. Another movement that is has been gaining traction is the Show the Salary movement. And if you're not familiar with this, you should be. Everybody should be showing the salary in the nonprofit sector at this point. And if you don't understand why that's important, they tell you. Okay, it's all in here. It's all there. The Ethical Rainmaker is the only podcast I have the attention to actually sit through. A little bit of ADHD there, but I love this person so much. And she gathers incredibly interesting people and interviews them. And her podcast is just incredible. I love it, love it, love it. One of two of my favorite episodes, one of them is, yes, sorry.
Marisa, somehow we're not sharing your screen anymore. It stopped after the CCF website. Yeah. And while you're fixing that,
maybe, hold on, I know what it is.
The Ethical Rainmaker, by the way,
Okay.
I post links to that on Fridays in my Facebook group. So yeah, I totally agree with Marisa on this. It's a great podcast.
I can see it just fine. I saw the Michelle Shirley, the last thing I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys got it now?
Yeah, about the Ethical Rainmaker. That was it.
Not on my screen, but that's
Yeah.
okay. If everybody
Okay, so that's it. Okay, and this one was Fund the People, and it's just fundthepeople.org, showthesalary.org. Yeah, you can Google these, I'll pop right up for you. And the other one, what's the other one? I feel like there was one more. Oh, Decolonizing Wealth. Yes, my gosh, how could I forget that one? So this is like the number one, the first book on the reading list on the CCF website. And man, that is a heck of a book. You've got to get it. Edgar Villanueva is the author. He's from the South and worked in a foundation and has some things to say. You must read. This is the website that he created. It's a whole thing. They are doing some super interesting things from the grant maker side. So this is folks, you know, giving differently, using money as medicine, liberated capital, right? They're doing some really cool things. So Decolonizing Wealth, Edgar Villanueva. We envision a world where racial equity has become a societal norm and new systems and ways of being ensure everyone can live their best lives, thrive in their cultures, and bring about healing from generations of colonial trauma. So, so those are some general resources I wanted to share. And then I also have some local stuff for those of you who are in Austin. Let me get back to my other page. Let me run through that before. So one of the things on the Community-Centric Fundraising website is an incredibly detailed and useful list of aligned actions. So these slides will be available to you, and that's a link right to that document. And it's not just a checklist, it's got like a spot for who and when and how. So it's like a little rubric for you to work from that's super useful. Okay, and then here's the local stuff. So in the process of preparing for this, I got to meet this incredible person, Michelle Vren, who is active in AFP and is doing a talk about CCF. I don't remember exactly when. It might have been at their next meeting on the 24th. So Michelle is delighted to connect with any of you. I got her permission to connect you directly with her on LinkedIn via that link there. There is a CCF Texas chapter, which I had no idea, but there are chapters everywhere and they're starting to really blow up. So even if you're not in Austin, if you go onto slack.com, if you're a user of Slack, CC Fundraising, you know, that one, I hope that may be a typo because I feel like there should be two F's there. But anyway, CCF Fundraising, slack.com, there are channels for specific areas. So no matter where you are, you can get in via that method. And the link to the Slack is also on the CCF website. And they also have a Google group that sends out emails. So there's an email here that you can use to ask for to be added to that list. And then there's an article that she wrote recently with a guy named Marcus Cunningham, who locally is also doing on some work, and it's open letter to UT Austin. So that's very interesting stuff.
Marcus is my guest next Tuesday.
You, Nancy?
So Marcus is my guest next Tuesday, but I have a slide.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yay. That's perfect. I'm glad I accidentally gave him a plug. And then, so that's local stuff. Like, yeah, Marcus, you can pay me later, buddy. No, just kidding. All right. Oh, and then these were some like random things I just off of the top of my head, and the aligned actions list is much more detailed than this, but I'm gonna just throw a bunch of potential stuff that you could walk away and use, or you could think about. If you're hiring, this is the big thing. Show the salary, don't require a degree, do offer more flexibility in working arrangements, do make the hiring process simpler, and thoughtfully write a job description, including your values and goals. When I tell you the job description from this conservation organization included must understand systemic racism and its effects on, and I about lost it. Have you ever seen a job description that included their equity, process that clearly? It was incredible. In fact, I downloaded it because even after they filled the position, I was like, I need to save this because this is amazing. So let me know. I'll email it right to you if you want to literally copy and paste, because it was astounding. Check your language before you're publishing. Check your language and your images, right? Are you silencing the voices of your staff to make your donors more comfortable? Are you centering we, right? Look back at that performative statement from your org from a year ago and turn it into some action. right? Give your DEI committee some actual teeth. Demand accountability for the DEI program if you have one already, right? Hire a Black woman, an undocumented person, or a formerly incarcerated person, or an LGBTQIA person. Happy Pride, by the way. Sit them down and then ask them, how can I best support you? And then listen, right? Listen. This is a phrase that is one of my favorite things right now. So ask yourself this: in this situation, is it better to step into your power or step out of the way? Okay. Seeing yourself as a person in a position of power in your community, is it better to step in or step out of the way and maybe pass the mic to somebody that maybe can represent better, right? Have a sit down with your beneficiary, your client, like you would with a major donor before using their story, because consider a story a major donation, because it is really, right? If you're a gatekeeper, be a good gatekeeper, hold the gate open, right? Or better yet, break it down. One of my favorite people is, I call her like the best gatekeeper, because she not only opens doors for me to get into spaces, she holds them open, right? She puts herself in that space to hold it open for me as a Black woman, right? That's a thing you can do, right? She could have run that panel herself or whatever, right? But she was like, no, Marisa, you need to do it. You need to do it. You need to do it. I'm turning your mic up. No, I'm fading in the background. That's what an ally does, right? Let's chat there. The pause. So this came up in a conversation yesterday, and it was that same friend, and she said, I was somewhere and somebody in power, some sort of director or something, said something offensive, something racist, I think. And she said, I opened my mouth because I am who I am. But before I let that breath go, I looked to my right where I saw a person who was actually like impacted by this statement. And she said, and I made eye contact with her. And while I was still holding that breath, she stepped forward and spoke, because I knew this was not my fight. And someone is here who can represent their own selves, right? So that's what that means, like stepping out of the way. Taking a pause before you jump in. Is there somebody else that's directly affected that can maybe speak? Are you really contributing, or are you just, right? Consider creating space in your decision-making areas for volunteers and program recipients. It gives them ownership, it gives them agency, it makes them a partner, not just a person to be served, right? It's a different perspective. Turn down a grant, send it to a grassroots org. If you're a big old org with a giant budget, hand it over, give it to somebody that needs it more. Maybe consider merging or pooling resources. So those are just my, quick little, like off the top of my head, things that you could easily, quickly do. There are so many things that you can do, but being here and being in this conversation is an incredible step. And it doesn't matter where exactly you are on your journey, but it matters that you're on the journey, right? And I do apologize. It looks like my internet connection's getting unstable again. So my apologies if I'm stuck on a weird face or something. But that's pretty much the end of what I had to present, Nancy, if you want to
yes, I do need to share my screen again, so I'm going to do that.
Stop the screen share.
Yeah,
please do, because now my laptop has frozen a little bit. So take the wheel if you want.
Right. I want to talk about Marcus real quick here. Listen, that was amazing to have that. I really thought about a lot during that presentation. I actually wanted to say a few things, but there was so much. So it's great that we recorded this. For those of you who are not members of our Facebook group, Austin Nonprofit Meetup, please join, because we have these live interviews on Tuesday. And coming up, and thank you, Marisa, for mentioning Marcus. We have him next week. And these interviews are only 15 minutes in length, and they're at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time inside of our Facebook group. So please join us for that. And this is where you find the Austin Nonprofit Meetup Facebook group. You can click on this link a little bit later. Please join us. And I wanted to tell you that on my Power Your Mission YouTube channel, you can find, like, today's meetup with the amazing Marisa will be on my YouTube channel probably by tomorrow. And there's several playlists, and you want to look for the one called Austin Nonprofit Meetup. And you may have to scroll to find it. And I also have been uploading the Facebook Live to my YouTube channel, and that's called Austin Nonprofit Meetup Facebook Group Live. All right. And there's a featured film, a meetup we did in March called Diversity, Equity, Inclusion that you can see. I'm trying to go fast because I know we're about out of time, but I wanted to tell you this one. Remember, I said there's a lot of different formats we use. In July, we're going to be doing another networking event, and this one is about you. I'm looking for people who that are here today that would like to be interviewed. You could tell me about your nonprofit, about challenges you're having, about help you might need. You could be telling us about successes, anything you want. If you're willing to be interviewed on one of those Tuesdays, email me and I will remind you to do that. And I want to thank the amazing Marisa. That was an excellent presentation. And I also enjoyed watching some of the chat that I had access to. And it looked like people were very involved. I love seeing that. And of course, thank you once again to Miss Shannon, who's always with us every single month. And again, we will be sending out the recording for today. And we're right at 1:45. We did it perfectly. Thank you so much for all of you coming. Yes. Oh, yes. And sometimes at the end, we like to have time to meet each other. But listen, next week is our networking event. So please come so we can meet one another and support one another. That's the idea behind all this. So, okay, I guess I think we're done, unless anybody has anything that they want to add. Let me do this side-by-side gallery. I don't know what that is, what I just did. I don't know what I just did once again. But
well, I can't see anything because my
there we go. Did we lose you, Marisa? We lost Marisa.
Guys, if you can save your chat with the 3 dots in the lower right-hand corner. I know some of you are on cell phones, you probably can't save it there. But that's a great way to be able to know everybody's organizations, their names, their pronouns, and also to be able to put in a pro bono project request from Leap to Success. Summertime, we always have a dip in our requests. And so this would be a perfect time to be able to get some quote unquote professional help from us. Thank you, Nancy.
Exactly. And I told somebody that I will save the chat as well, and I'll send it out with the recording, the slides, and the chat will all be at least by tomorrow. I'll have that done. So everybody will get it. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It was great to see all of you. All right. Bye-bye.